Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Satsang. Let's make some silence first. May I never, never, never give up. May the challenges that cross my path only help me to move higher without deviating. May I be able to look at those challenges as God's grace to help me to find my path. May my love for God increase more and more. So hello everyone, welcome again. Just reminding that we use WhatsApp as a means of communication. You can send your questions, they come directly to me. So, one of the things that a wannabe seeker of truth, a yet to be seeker of truth needs to know is that there are many challenges on the path. And it's difficult to start a real process, for it to be alive. And when it becomes alive, it's like you're doing a very big effort to bring this to life without knowing that that is not the end, but the beginning of it. And many, when it becomes alive, just throw it back away. So bringing it to life is difficult. And then having what it takes is much more difficult. But having what it takes, it means something else, because if the process becomes alive, it means you have what it takes. But, like always, what you're trying to transcend is your own ignorance. I will repeat that again. What you're trying to transcend is your own ignorance. So this has many implications, because many seekers look at this as this is an established reality. I need to move to a different reality. It's a graphical view, but moving from this reality, from this illusion, means only transcending your own ignorance. The ignorance about existence itself, about yourself. It's not about concepts becoming wiser because of concepts, because wisdom is the fruit of liberation, not the fruit of reasoning. And liberation is not the fruit of reasoning also. Reasonings can be made after it, if there's a point. But prior to that, they are not vehicles to liberation. So, transcending own ignorance, this is very important. And this is a game changer in the posture, in the attitude, in everything. Because if you're transcending, if you're supposed to transcend your own ignorance, how can you use as a guide your mind and your senses? If they are the mechanisms that bind you, that are your illusion, that feed themselves, not possible. And this is very confusing. So we can also say that Your ignorance is your safe haven. In there, you can find all your fears and all your hopes, aspirations, dreams. Everything is there. Everything that you imagine, you believe that will make you suffer, that is suffering. And everything that you really believe that will bring happiness. Everything is a part of your own ignorance. It's both of these extremes keep the balance of your ignorance. And you fully believe that suffering is circumstantial. And by believing it so, you also believe that happiness is likewise circumstantial. But both of them, if you remember suffering and you remove the circumstances and you remember all the episodes you can of suffering, you will see the same operating mechanics, the same inner, closer, intimate experience, only differing in intensity. The level of intensity makes the difference in the experience. Also the doors where it is coming, if it's starting from the physical body, if it's starting from the emotional body, or from the mental body. So the doors appear to be different, but the inner experience is the same. Suffering. Likewise, your known experience of happiness is also the same. The doors that it may come, it may be different doors, but the intimate, the close, intimate experience of it differs only in intensity, but it is the same mechanism. If you change different situations and you move closer and closer to the center of that experience, you will see always the same experience, only the level of intensity making the difference. And this has nothing, but nothing to do with circumstance. Your illusion feeds itself constantly by your body, mind, and senses. By your beliefs, your fears impels you into one direction, your dreams impel you to one direction. And these, both of these together, they are maintaining suffering and aspirating for happiness, which is liberation of this suffering, more or less. So your fears and your dreams, your hopes and expectations, they work together to bind you to that reality slash illusion that you're living. And that's what they're there for. Nothing else. So what you know of happiness is in fact a source of your misery. And what you know of misery is binded to what you know as happiness. One brings the other, and so forth, alternating, giving a boost a meaning to that which is meaningless, which is normal life. Real happiness, you don't know. It is unknown to you. People tend to run away from what they don't know. Despite how bad is the known, the unknown scares even more. So you will fight happiness, the path of happiness, real happiness, with all your being, as long as you are conditioned by your fears, attachments, hopes, and dreams. And this is why there's a need of a very high degree of surrender to guidance to be able to make the path. Because you will always be going against guidance. Knowingly, unknowingly, that's what you'll do. So without a level of trust and surrender, a high level, you will see blessings as punishments and punishments as blessings. Because transcending your own ignorance is something which is fearful, dreadfully fearful to you, because it is getting out from the known. And this by itself causes a lot of anxiety, fear, terror sometimes. That without that level of trust, it's not possible. Because if you call sincerely for God, He will answer. But in your mind, God's answer is something that will confirm the present logic in your mind, that these images of happiness that you carry will come true in some way, and suffering will be avoided. Without understanding that suffering is that which you are holding on to with every breath you have, and guidance is directing you to a path where you will not have it anymore. And the suffering this involves is about the beliefs you have in your own structure, in your own ignorance, nothing else. There's no more suffering apart from your beliefs, from that which is beyond your ignorance. That suffering is kind of a firewall, a protection mechanism of your illusion. Because your belief comes from here. And when this is not in the right place, it's simply not possible. Because as you are being closer and closer to the fears, to the terror-like situations because of your stubbornness, lack of trust, this will turn again to your beliefs of happiness, to those images of happiness. And the fact is, it wants to believe. So, putting it this way, it doesn't matter what you know about your cycles of suffering, how much you have seen, what logic says, it doesn't matter because you want to believe. The mind wants to believe. This is how people are dragged life upon life because of beliefs. And, well, people live in misery, knowingly or unknowingly. It's misery. So, in a way, they are having a feedback of what the value of those beliefs really is. Still, they continue, still, they persist because of these ingrained ideas. They don't know where they came from. They may have lots of theories about it, but they really don't know. They just follow them blindly. So when guidance is coming, the suffering that you experience, it's because of getting closer to transcend your illusion, your ignorance. Like imagining a movie that's going on the television. And the character of the movie, let's call it the main character because you are the main character of your movie, succeeds in coming out of the TV, coming out of the story, being out of it. Well, it seems impossible. Yes, for the seeker of truth, it seems impossible also, but it is possible. And that's the scary part. Because beyond your fears, there is just grace, more and more freedom, more and more liberation, until final liberation. That's all which is happening. Nothing bad. Quite the opposite. And so good, that you can't even see it because you're so attached to your images, to your ideas, to your fears, and you're living that instead of the opposite. Your logic accommodates that which is prior to logic. It is meaningless. Logic is completely circumstantial. Logic reveals more where you're coming from, where you're going to. The rest is meaningless. It's just a response mechanism. It's not a center of analysis and evaluation. It may appear to be so, but it isn't. So as guidance, as God is pulling you out of your own misery, you will start suffering because your misery is by far the most important thing for you. It is the center of that individual existence. And the difficulties that arise, they are not from what guidance is giving you, but it is the friction which is being created by that path and your ignorance with everything that you fear and you want to run away and everything that you want to possess. Sincerity has many levels, like I've explained previously. Your sincerity from now, after a little time of work, will not be enough. It will have to increase. And your decisions need to keep up with it. So these opening words that I've said prior to silence, they are very important, because if you if you have the calling to transcend your own ignorance, you need to be prepared to give steps that go against logic, your logic. And most importantly, never deviate. And deviating has many meanings. Many meanings. And when things get rough, usually the tendency is to save the character. And by doing so, running over every value, higher value that is in the way. And eventually coming to the conclusion that I'm not giving up my path, I'm just going for a different road. Well, you may say that, but you're actually giving up, because whatever was put in front of you was guidance to liberation, to transcend your ignorance. Going against it, surrounding it, going around it, is to embrace your ignorance. And when it becomes more and more serious, as it becomes more and more serious, you will reach many times the point that you see no way to transcend that. And that means that whatever was put in front of you doesn't fit your world. But if you persist and you don't entertain the same old hopes, the same images of happiness, it may take long hitting the wall with your head, but eventually you will find a way. It's like rebirthing again, reinventing something completely new. It's even more than that. It is what's called death and rebirth. You cannot fake those experiences, because death will always be a death-like experience, and birth will always be a birth-like experience. And even these experiences, they are from individual to individual. Many individuals, in the face of death, they get terror stricken. Others get blissful. So it's always about you. And one of the biggest difficulties in these moments are these images of happiness and the fears that are there, and the need to maintain both. Because it is the need to maintain your world. Even guidance, as you look at guidance, You imagine that guidance is taking you to the images of your happiness. But it's not. There's no happiness there. There's just misery. The suffering that you're experiencing now is your present misery. Your hopes for a better future, your images of happiness, it is the yet to come misery. But both are misery. So happiness and well-being, they are only for the seeker of truth, the mature one. But the main reason for it is that he is not there for that. He is there for truth. Because if, by any chance, he gets seduced and entangled by the well-being, he stops being a seeker of truth and he loses it. There is no way around guidance. No way. And any deviation that you make, if you get serious again, eventually, no matter how long it takes, you will have to reach that spot where you deviate and go through the process again until you're able to ascend and transcend that level. And it seems like a paradox because the more fearful you are, more potential there is. Because the potential to break your beliefs is strong. Less fearful you are, your beliefs are more plastic, they can incorporate more things. The power of adaptation is bigger, so potential decreases. So in a sense, the suffering that the suffering that you experience in your spiritual path, in a way, helps you to continue. Because if there wasn't any suffering, you wouldn't be able to take it. It would be too much, too overwhelming. Peace can be, or the absence of friction, which the majority calls peace, can be overwhelming, too much for the majority. It's very common for people that their lives enter a place where, when it does happen, because they make sure it doesn't, but when it sometimes it happens, everything starts getting more peaceful, more quiet. They cannot stand it. They start to become agitated. They don't know what it is, but there's a problem there. They cannot focus. They start to be miserable in their lives. And once they find a problem, or a problem finds them, poof, here they are, back again, focused, polarized. Life has become meaningful again. And this is why I repeat again and again. Once you make the decision for liberation, you don't turn back. And once that decision is made, your mind has no say about it anymore. Because whatever is driven by your ignorance, mind being the center of it, what your ignorance will make to bring you closer to the path of liberation, as you get closer, really, your mind will do everything to take you back from there. So that body mind is there to maintain you trapped to suffering, to the stories, the mechanisms that are behind your suffering, so that time can fly away from you. And wherever you turn, accept the path of liberation. It's just to maintain the same mechanical stories, lifeless stories, that sing the tales of misery and keep them by envisioning illusory future happiness. Remember this. There is no circumstantial suffering. There's just the manifestation of your own misery. If you're seeking for happiness, you have to go to the source. But that has to mean that you will seek liberation despite the suffering which can be involved. And that's the only way. Okay. So next satsang will be Saturday, 9:30 in the morning, Brazilian time, UTC -3. Until then, make the best use of your time. Make it real.